To Gay Johnny's Vegan Kitchen. I'm Debra. This is Che.
So last week we made street tacos.
Yeah.
Are we going to continue the Mexican theme this week?
We are. I'm going to make a vegan tres leches cake for everybody.
Sounds delicious.
It is.
Let's get to it.
Let's get ready to make that tres leches. We have got all of our ingredients here and ready to go. I have 200 milliliters of oat milk that have been measured out. These are great. They've got all kinds of measurements around them, so pick your poison. I'll put a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in that in a minute. We've got 800 milliliters of aquafaba. That is the bean juice from chickpeas. Took me a really long time to figure out where that one was in the store when a recipe called for aquafaba. Now you don't have to hunt around for it. 150 grams of granulated sugar, 80 milliliters of oil, which is roughly a third of a cup. 2 teaspoons of vanilla will be added in. We've got 200 grams of flour, 20 grams of cornstarch, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, half a teaspoon of baking soda, and a quarter teaspoon of salt. So I know Che has mentioned it in a previous video. Anytime we have a recipe where it's got a weight measurement, you can just use a food scale on it, place your empty container, zero out that food scale, put it on grams, ounces, whatever your recipe calls for. Then you start adding the ingredients. So that is how some of these have been measured out. But the first things first, we're going to make vegan buttermilk. So we're starting with that oat milk. And we're just going to add in our tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Likes to settle on the bottom. I always just give it a nice little shake. We're just going to set that off to the side, let it curdle. It's going to look really ugly. And you'll notice when I bake, I sometimes keep a towel on my shoulder because I wipe everything down and use it again later. So we'll just set that off for now. This out of the way. So we're going to move on to the aquafaba. Aquafaba is really cool. I am learning how to do all kinds of fun things with it. For this recipe, we are going to beat it just a little bit to get it foamy. So usually between 1 to 2 minutes. I'm going to use an electric handheld mixer today instead of manually doing this because my arms are a little tired. So if you don't have one, a whisk and a lot of arm power will work well. So aquafaba can be used with sugar to make vegan meringue, and we'll be doing that maybe around Christmas time, or maybe it's now we use some little meringue doughs for fun. And I'm not going to beat it as thick as it was on mine. I just want to incorporate some air in there. That's going to be enough for a cake. So I'm going to keep the mixer here because I'm going to use it for a couple more things. So got our whipped aquafaba. I'm just going to set that off to the side. We're going to come back to her. So we're going to grab our oil and our sugar. And just give those a mix. Mix it for about 1 minute. All right, and to this, we're going to add our 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So you're probably wondering why I made this recipe. And as Che mentioned in the previous video, August is Mexican Heritage Month, and we decided to make things that our friends who have family in and from Mexico have as family traditions. A lot of cooking, to me, really brings people together. It's a lot about community, about family. We use it to celebrate. We use it to support each other in times of need. So for me, anytime that I can tap into somebody's tradition, learn a little bit about it, and then also make it in a way where vegan people can enjoy the same thing, I really enjoy doing that. So let me give this a little mix. I'll turn this on again and we'll get going on the next ingredient. All right, so we're just incorporating that. I always lift my beaters up a little bit, get all that excess off because I do want that. And I'm going to move this off to the side. We're going to hand mix it from here on out. So for our dry ingredients, I have a larger bowl. I have my sifter. Now, I do have two of these. This one does not have pink anywhere on it. I have the other one marked. The other one I use for gluten-free flours. There's a lot of dust that hangs out in these, and I don't wash them every single time. I don't want to break down the metal. I don't want them to rust. So I keep two in my household. Depending on who you're baking for, you may want to consider having two of these. But I like to put all of my dry ingredients through a sifter. And I actually do this with every recipe that I bake, even when the recipe doesn't call for it. I just like how it smooths everything out. It takes out the lumps. And it makes it a lot easier when you're going to mix. All right, so here's the cornstarch. Just add that right in. Our baking powder. Our baking soda. And our salt. And we're going to start to incorporate our wet ingredients first. So I'm just dumping the aquafaba into this bowl. And I'm just going to mix it to incorporate these ingredients. And because we have a nice, good, foamy aquafaba, you don't really have to worry about knocking out too much of that air. It's not going to collapse on you. It's pretty stable. So you don't have to fold it in. You don't have to be as careful as you would with, say, an egg white. In goes the vegan buttermilk. Again, just stirring to incorporate. Then our dry ingredients. There's a couple different types of sifters. You have kinds that you just tap like that. Mine actually has a handle with two sides on it. One hits a little bit closer to your product, and one gives it a little more room. I just want to make sure that I get all of that in there. So into your dry ingredients, you're going to pour in all those wet ones that we just mixed. I don't know about you. My mother certainly did not bake any Mexican baking recipes. A lot of Swedish stuff with my grandmother. And then just kind of, I guess what people would consider traditional American chocolate cake, vanilla cake, sometimes red velvet cake. But the one that my mother did for our birthdays and big celebrations was actually a poppy seed cake. So we'll have to make that sometime together. And just want to make sure you get that pretty well incorporated. I do not like lumpy flour in my recipes. I know some recipes say it's okay, it'll bake in. It doesn't work so well for me. So I'm just going to keep stirring that until it's well incorporated. And then there are different options for pans. So you can do a traditional metal baking pan for this, or you can use the kind that I do, the Pyrex. I prefer these because they have the lids that fit on top of them. This is something that once we assemble it, it's going to stay in the fridge. It's going to need to be cool, whether it is non-vegan or vegan. The ingredients that are in it, you do want to keep cool. So I'm going to bake it in this and then take it out to cool. We'll reassemble in the same pan. I have just made a little almost blanket for the bottom of my cake. So I've cut 2 different pieces of parchment paper to bundle this into. It's going to make it easier to take that cake out, cool it on the pan, and then we're going to have to pick that cake up very carefully and put it down in there without the parchment paper later. So just pour that in. Your spatula is handy. It helps to get all of those yummy ingredients. And you're going to put this into an oven that has been preheated to 350 degrees and bake it for just at 30 minutes. Test it with a toothpick, with a cake tester once it's done. We'll take it out, cool it in the pan for about 10 minutes, and we'll go from there. All right, our cake is out of the oven right at 30 minutes. Checked it with a toothpick, came out clean. Other ways of checking it, you can have a cake tester, a little metal poker. You can also just kind of press on it and tell when it is firm enough. If it's too squishy, just put it back in for a few minutes. We're going to leave it here in the pan on the rack for 10 minutes. And then we're going to carefully lift this baby out and put it on the cooling rack by itself for a little while. So we'll be back when it's time to do that part. All right, this is cooled for about 10 minutes in the pan. We're going to take it out. The pan's still incredibly hot. Doesn't really matter what kind of pan you use. So just move your pan off the rack. Carefully use your hot mitts. And then we are going to pick this baby up however you can using the parchment paper. And I like to try and start to peel the parchment paper just off the sides. We'll get it off the bottom later when we put it back in the pan and do the next step. But we're going to let this cool for about 20 minutes by itself on the pan. And that container is going to be cooling at the same time. All right, now I think this is the most challenging part of the bake for me, is getting the cake back in the pan without the parchment paper. So what I have done is just pulled out the long piece of parchment paper, but just have the one piece. Really approach it any way you want. I haven't found one particular way that works better for me than anything else. You may have to stick something underneath it to get it off the parchment paper. It may come off real easily. You may be able to just slide your hand under there and place it. Mine feels a little loosey-goosey, so I'm just going to kind of make this up as I go along and see if I can fold that paper out as I put the cake in the pan. And then hopefully there's a little bit of leverage to just move it around in the side there. If it gets a little beat up, that's okay. We're going to make that tres leches soak next. But here it is, back in the pan. Not looking perfect, but it's going to taste amazing. So I'll be back in a minute and we'll get the next step going. All right, it is time for the milk soak. We've got our cake in the pan. It's had plenty of time to cool. The parchment paper's out of the way. You're going to stab it a lot with a fork. It's probably the most fun part for me. And it's okay if it picks up little pieces of the cake with it. Not a big deal. You're going to be soaking this cake. All right, so I do like to press those few little pieces down just to smooth out the top a little bit. All right. So now we've got 200 milliliters of evaporated oat milk or evaporated coconut milk, whatever you can find. 2/3 of a cup or 150 grams of sweetened condensed oat milk. And last but not least, 50 grams or 1/4 cup of coconut whipping cream. We'll be using that product a little bit later on as well. So I like to put everything in this bowl for mixing. I'm gonna grab a small spatula real quick, make this a little easier. Now, I will say, using coconut milk and coconut products, you can taste the coconut, so just make sure if you are making this for someone, they understand that there's going to be a little taste of coconut just due to the products that were used in making it. Get as much of it in there as you can. And we are just going to stir this until it's combined. Just keep checking your whisk. You don't really have to whisk it fast. Just get everything incorporated. Make sure there aren't any lumps. When I use that coconut whipping cream, I actually vigorously shake the can before I open it, because that helps incorporate a lot of the clumps that you have in that coconut product. You can also just use your spatula after you open the can and just go like that, and it gets some of those lumps incorporated into that liquid again. That way it is nicer, easier to use. So now we're gonna just soak the cake with it. But just pour it on. Make sure you get as even coverage as you can. That looks good. And one more thing. In the beginning, I explained that I use this pan because it comes with a lid. I'm gonna pop that lid on there. If you are using a traditional pan, I would cover it with some saran wrap, plastic wrap, just to make sure you are sealing that top. And we're gonna put this in the hour. You're gonna let it soak for at least 3 hours, but you can let it soak overnight before we put that frosting on. We'll come back when this is ready. All right, we are at the final step here. Using the remainder of that can of coconut whipping cream and a tablespoon of powdered sugar. Just gonna put those in here and beat them. I have had that cream in the fridge to cool, so it is chilled before I do this step. I'm just going to give it a quick taste. It is sweetness that I like, so we are going to stop there. All right, so it is whipped like a regular good old-fashioned whipped cream. I'm going to go get that cake out of the fridge. So it has been chilling for the minimum of 3 hours. Ideally, you'd want to do this overnight. This adds to it. But you can see it's really, really thick in there. That cream has solidified. That's exactly how you want it. There's lots of piercings in that cake, so it's really sunk in and absorbed that. So we're just going to spoon this on top. If you want to pipe it, you can. If you just want to spoon it out, you can. And I'm just going to smooth this out over the top and make sure I get all the edges. A little bit of a design on top. Just swirl it back and forth a little bit. I'm going to put the lid up on it. I'm going to chill it for about another 10 to 20 minutes before I'm ready to serve it, just so that that can set back up again since we were just beating it. All right, I have Che with me. I'm going to try it out. So it's been cooling since we put the whipped topping on it. There's different ways to serve it. Traditional is to sprinkle some cinnamon over the top. I'm not good at this, so it ends up either too thin or too thick. That's okay. Che will forgive me. And then if you want, after you plate it, put it in a plate, put it in a bowl, you can put fresh berries on top. Always tastes good that way as well. Get it out of the pan however you want. If you want a spatula, do that. If you want to use a spoon, do that. There's no right or wrong way. It's however you feel like it. However you can actually get it. because it's not easy. So we're going to take that piece. There we go. It's not easy. Doesn't look pretty. This is why sometimes I just use a spoon to get it out. All right, you want to taste it?
Good. Go well for tacos.
That it will. It's going to go well with dinner tonight, too. Awesome. And that is vegan tres leches. Thanks for joining.